Hey, welcome back to the channel. So here is the excavator, and you can see it's got the enclosure and the air conditioner on it now. Although it wasn't easy getting this thing on here, the guy that sold it to me told me that, you know, they're standard. They fit each machine. These enclosures just fit on all of them, but they don't. It's pretty obvious. You had to cut all this stuff out of here on this side over here, and then over here I got it to slide on here, and you can see it needs to be trimmed up right here along that line. But you know, that's a job for another day. I've got a lot of work to do with this thing, and I don't really have time to really play around with it too much. So one of the changes I did is it had a on-off switch for the light that goes to the boom over here, and I relocated that over to the panel up here. So all the switches are up in that panel. It's tight up there, and I also got the pressure gauge mounted up there, so it's just easier to get to. And then you can see here the air conditioner, and then it comes with a fan and a fire extinguisher. And then just in case you fall over, it's got this hammer, you can break the glass. Other couple things that I did here is I added a temperature gauge right here, and there's an on-off switch, and that turns the alternator on and off. There's a couple wires that go in the back of it, and I'll show it to you when I get the cover off of the foot pan down here, whatever you want to call it. And also I added a new throttle cable, and it comes with a choke as well, because this unit did not have a choke. I've seen a lot of them, they have a choke that's located down over here, but this absolutely had no choke on it. So I just did away with the factory one and put this setup on here. Getting around to the back of the unit here, here's I tied into the oil filter here, tapped a hole, a 1/4 inch one and an 1/8 inch one. My original thought was to put a temperature gauge going back into the tank, and then one before the cooler, so I could actually kind of measure the temperature differential. But when I got the switches, the temperature monitors or gauges, whatever you want to call them, they didn't read accurately. So I just put the one in, and I ran the thing. It's remarkable. I ran this for a couple of hours yesterday, and it never got above 117 degrees. And if you watched the video before, I think it was getting up to somewhere around 120 or something like that. Pretty close, I guess. But this is a heck of a lot smaller cooler. And see if you can see in here. It's a little bit easier if I take the top off the actual seat, and you can see. But what I have here is the same two fans, and then the radiator, or excuse me, the cooler that you've seen before. It's sheet metal screwed right into the cooler itself. There's each part of the side of it is just flat aluminum. There's no part of the core there, and it works really good. You can see the cooler here inside here, just lined up with these ventilation holes. So there's a better look at the cooler itself. And don't laugh, but it didn't have a shroud, and it's important to put a shroud on these things to you really get the efficiency out of the cooler. And I bought a toolbox with the same dimension as that, and just took a angle grinder and ground off the bottom of it and cut 2 holes in it, and then mounted it on there. It was like a $17 toolbox, so it was cheaper than trying to fabricate something, and a heck of a lot easier. Got a bulkhead fitting here, which that's the line that goes the oil filter, and then up and around the canopy and back around. And I mean, it's a tight fit. To get this stuff in here is not easy at all. When I originally ran this thing and kind of bench test the air conditioner, it was pulling like 30 amps, and it's rated for 60. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So I actually dumped the charge. I recovered the charge, and then I evacuated it and I charged it back up. And it definitely seems like it's got a little higher tug on the alternator, and now it's pulling like 60 amps like it should. Although I'm not really so sure, because this meter right here has got a yellow wire, a red wire, and a black wire, and you're supposed to tie the red and the yellow together if you're using it for a certain voltage and this, that, and the other, and I didn't. So that might have had something to do with it. I really don't know. But anyhow, I'll start it up for you here, and you'll see how she works. Before I change up here, the toggle switch, when those two wires are joined together or made, whatever you want to call it, it shuts the alternator off, and it seems like it starts better with the alternator off. It doesn't seem to like want to crank as much, and it doesn't want to fight itself. It doesn't seem like there's not a load on it. So when it's in this on position, it's actually just contacts are closed and it's not working. So I'll start it up just to let you know how that whole thing works. You might not, I'm not probably going to talk too much when this thing's running. It's kind of noisy, as you know. Okay, so it should crank without any kind of difficulty whatsoever. I had it on earlier today, but let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the alternator. More thing I did, and it has absolutely nothing to do with just to make it a little easier to operate, is I put these round handles on here because I mean to tell you, these things just eat into my hands like there's no tomorrow. These gimmicks right here, that corn right there, holy crap. All right, so I got the old kick plate off, so to speak, whatever you want to call it. So here's the old alternator, and then here's the amp clamp right here. It's on the positive wire that goes to the gauge. And what I actually did, I had 3 fans. So in the alternator bracket came with 2 brackets, and so you see one bracket that you kind of see in like a normal alternator for adjusting it. So is all I really did was just take it and twist it and bent it and drilled a hole in it and mounted the fan on it. It's a pulling fan, so it's blowing direction this way to kind of keep the alternator cool. This thing really does run hot though, but I'm not so sure how hot is too hot. So I'm gonna take a few things apart inside here. The bottom of the seat here, and that back pan over there. I'm gonna put some of this here insulation stuff in here. There's sound deadening, heat blocking, super duper whammy. Who knows if it'll work or if it'll melt. Probably won't. It's not that hot. So yeah, this works really good. You know, with the fan over here, you know, it blows additional air on the engine, which helps out quite a bit. This is missing the back piece here because it just wouldn't fit back on. And you know what? I really don't mind it off of there. Quite honest with you, it doesn't weigh anything. It's not doing anything. So in my opinion, I think it's probably just as good just to be off. It's a lot easier to maintain. That's for darn sure. I've seen people put hinges on them, but I don't know. I have to do a little bit of work here because there's a little gap right here. Oh, there's a huge gap now. The seat's up. Yeah, there is a bit of a gap to deal with, as you can see. But despite that being open and it's 90 to 95 degrees out, it was still sweat-free operation. You know, I didn't get any kind of a temperature thermometer in there, so I really don't know how actually cold it gets, but it's all I know is it's a hell of a lot better than what it was. So I guess, you know, there's another option. The garage connection fella has one that has an alternator that you bolt on the back side over here, you know, above that hydraulic pump, and you'll have to take the engine out of it to do that, and then you have to rev the hell out of it, as he admitted. And even with the cooler that he has, he admits that the best you can get is 180 out of it. I guess 180 degrees, won't exceed that. I just feel like this might be just a bit better. You don't have to rev it very much more than you normally do, and the hydraulics don't run hot, and you don't have to take the engine out to bolt it in. It seems better to me. It's so much easier to put in, I would think. But tell me what you think. Thanks for watching.